Greetings, and you are watching the 3 Count with your special guest, the technical alchemist, David Mercury.
Do you wanna get live with me? Do you really wanna ride with me? I'm in the club, baby, grind on me.
Welcome, everybody, to another great edition of the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And by now, with it being season 5 and our 380th something episode, I would just hope you say it with me. I am your Sherpa, because like your tribal chief, acknowledge me. But like every good Sherpa, you gotta have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficient than you can. That's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering. So who's entering? Well, you can find this man at CCW. You can find him at SNW, SSW, PWA, Twisted Wrestling, GCW, and that is not Game Changer Wrestling, Generation Championship Wrestling, and WXW. He is known as a madman. Some will call him a genius, but all will refer to him as the technical alchemist, David Mercury.
Thank you, Clifford. Thank you, Mr. Red Dog. I appreciate the intro. Thank you.
Hell yeah. No, it's funny because like we met each other in Maine, actually, of all the places that we could have met,
Right?
at SNW. And we just kind of kept in touch. It's funny because I didn't tell you this prior to us going on the air, but I actually was in Ocala, Florida, the week that you wrestled Cha-Cha, and I was gonna come to the show, and I just was like, it's my last night with my mom. I'm gonna just kind of stay here. But yeah, I really thought about driving over to Kissimmee and come watch the show, and I was like this close, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna stay because, like I said, it's my last night here.
Yeah, I hear that. Oh, man, when it comes to the CCW shows, especially what they do in Kissimmee, I mean, it's short. It's short but incredible. I mean, I worked with CCW back in the day. It's one of Florida's longest running promotions. The state itself, the promotion has a lot of history. A lot of talents has been through there that have gone on and done incredible things. They had former heavyweight champion MVP, the Tokyo Monster Kahagas, Cha-Cha Charlie, myself, now the current reigning heavyweight champion for CCW, QT Marshall. So, like, for the promotion itself, it has such a rich history, and to especially be back and to be a part of it, it's nothing short but incredible. I wouldn't have thinking that our roads would have crossed again, but they have, and we're doing well working together. Yeah, like I said, they're one of the most running promotions throughout the state of Florida, and they even do shows up in Nashville, Tennessee now. So, like, this promotion, they coined themselves on being the last territory, and with all the promotions in the state of Florida, as much as they're running and consecutively drawing, they're living up to that monarch.
Yeah, I have a good friend. You would know who she is, Lane Rosario, the lady ref. She's like a really great friend of mine. And yeah, so between her and Danny Briggs, he did go by Martin Stone for a while. Those are two of my mentors. And just getting to like chat it up with them and stuff. And I had mentioned I was there, and she was like, "Yo, come to the show." And I was like, "I know, I want to come watch," because I think even a good friend of mine too, Travis Jacobs, pops in and out every once in a while from New Jersey and wrestles in that area. So I was like, I could have seen all my friends. And
you got to take advantage of it. Sometimes when you're on the road, you just never know what opportunities might pop up for you, my man.
Yeah,
something you don't want to miss. And yes, Elaine and Danny, both incredible people, good friends of mine as well. I've known Elaine for quite some time now. We're going on to, I want to say, almost 8 years we've known each other. And I just recently got involved in meeting and hanging with Danny, and has become, I admire him for his love of the Florida wildlife. My man is always up for a high pitched laugh when it comes to these lovely creatures out through the state of Florida.
Yo, all right. Well, I want to get into kind of talking about you, right? But who is David Mercury?
Who is David Mercury? Ah, he, like you said, he. Some people have referred to him as a mad scientist. Others have referred to him as a genius. To me, he is a culmination of 22 years of hard work. Um, they're always saying that you're constantly reinventing yourself in this industry, and I definitely have had my fair shares as changing and evolving with the business. But for what I've become over the last 22 years, uh, in my eyes, in my opinion, it's almost a work of art. I mean, for everybody that has known me, um, and how I've been in the industry, there was like there's no better interpretation than what you have produced now as this mad scientist. Everybody has known that I've had a love for this for a very long time, and studied. I've experimented on this game for so long, and to be able to have this come to way it has, I mean, it was breathtaking, so to speak.
Well, that's one of the things that like attracted me to like wanting to bring you on the podcast, right? Was even before SNW, we met in Maine. I had saw your promo that you did for it, and I was just the presentation of it was like eye capturing, and then just you developing the way that you were talking and stuff. I was very drawn to it, and I was like, yo, this is what we've been talking about. And I remember like talking to you about it and telling you that like it kind of reminded me of like a Dr. Robotnik kind of meeting like the young Frankenstein, a young Dr. Frankenstein. And it just had like this cool appeal to it. And I was like, I'm very drawn to it because like it feels familiar, but I've never seen it before. And I'm like, I can relate with this. And I definitely, like I said, I was hooked from the moment I saw it.
That's a good term of using, that you got hooked on it just prior to it. And of course, with the evolution of people's characters and everything, also comes their presentation on how they present themselves in the ring. And for a while, that was kind of one of my little catchphrases, that when you experienced the technical alchemist, it was something that you got hooked. And what I used to do, and I used to use it as a big presentation in the ring for when pictures were taken, would be different poses or different maneuvers where I'm incorporating a fish hook on my opponent. And now that whole move of hooking people has now changed to what I call facial manipulation. And it's one of those types of poses, and I share it on my Facebook and on Instagram, of where I get my opponent and I get my opponent right where I want him, and just before this facial manipulation is commenced, I rip off my gloves, and when I rip them off, it's just such a presentation to it, that then I grab my opponent and I'm putting my fingers in practically every orifice that's on the human face, whether it's their nose, their mouth, their ears, and I'm just manipulating this person's face. And yeah, when you brought up hook, that just brought back me to that time of when I was out there making sure not just my fans were getting hooked on what I did, I also made sure my opponent.
Yo, I like that. I like that a lot. Yo, so I guess like where I want to be is okay, so everybody asked this question, right? And they asked it in the same way, like, oh, what got you into pro wrestling and blah 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 blah. But I don't really want to know all that. What I really want to know is I want to know if there was a moment that hooked you so bad you're like, I have to get into the business. Like for an example, my moment for me, right? I had two of them, right? One, I was a kid. 1997 Halloween Havoc, Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio was my match that hooked me instantly I was just drawn to the event. And I was like, I could be a pro wrestler. And then again in it was February 11th, 2000 or February 14th, 2011, when The Rock came back and was the guest host was announced as the guest host for WrestleMania. I get goosebumps just thinking about that event. And I told myself, I was like, if I ever get the opportunity to become a pro wrestler, like I'm doing this. And I was just curious, like, do you have that kind of moment?
Yes, of course. Everybody has their two moments of wanting to do this, and of course, my first one when I was a kid. Um, Growing up in the area that I grew up in Tampa, Florida, it's an area known as Town and Country, which is right around the corner from Tampa International Airport. Um, this area is like it was a place where all the wrestlers lived. I mean, our county commissioner was Brian Blair for a time. Um, One of my trainers, Steve Kern and Jimmy Del Rey, they lived in the area. Bill Alfonso lived in the area, and I was fortunate enough that I was in elementary school and got to Florida. And my family, of course, my dad, and he was a big fan, and my brother, and we all used to get together and watch it. And when we came to Florida, it's kind of when we got introduced to going and seeing live events. And then shortly after, while in elementary school, I met the son of a wrestler, Jean Gagne. His dad was known as Frenchie Martin back in the day. And when I would go to the shows, of course, I was a kid, and I was like, oh man, I want to be this. I want to do this. This is so cool. But then meeting a son of a wrestler, and then being able to go to his house and seeing the different pictures and the 8x10s and the articles of them in wrestling magazines, and seeing all this front and center, and then being fortunate enough from time to time to be able to meet these wrestlers, I was like, there's nothing else for me. Like, this is what I gotta do. And there was a period of time where my friend Gene moved away for a little bit. But then he moved back to Florida, and we were a lot older then. And then that's when he brought up the idea of like backyard wrestling. But it wasn't your, especially too in the 90s where, backyard wrestling was venturing into the whole crazy like hardcore scene, and people, it was like almost like the precursor to like the evolution of death matches. But our wrestling promotion, it wasn't like that. We were actually a character-based promotion, and that was all through the help of some friends, and of course his dad gave a little bit of an influence on it as well too. And it grew from there. And I went from middle school to high school. While I was in high school, I started kind of taking it seriously. Because my mom, she also knew another wrestler by the name of the Italian Stallion, Tony Marino. And I remember the first piece of advice he gave me when I asked him about, I want to be a pro wrestler. What does it take? And he told me, he said, you're in high school? I said, yeah. He said, join the wrestling team. Ain't nothing out there that'll get you better prepared for professional wrestling than going out there and being an amateur wrestler. So I did, and I competed for 5 years. Right when I finished up with high school, I went balls to the wall and was like, I'm going to be this pro wrestler. So then Tony Marino would take me to the NWA shows that were held at Fort Hessler Armory, which that's one of Tampa's very big, very legendary buildings when it comes to professional wrestling. It was one of the one of the auditoriums, one of the auditoriums where like Dusty Rhodes made his name, and my trainer had won the NWA Florida Heavyweight Championship in that building, and that's where I ended up getting to meet Steve Kern. And with Steve Kern, I got to meet one of his top students, and then that's all she wrote. Like, I got involved with current school, and I, for the last 22 years, just dedicated myself to being this professional wrestler. And I give them all the love in the business, all the love in my heart for the fact that those guys, gave me that opportunity and took me in and took me under his wing and really taught me how to be a good competitor, a great competitor in the ring, not just um, athletic wise, but performance wise, to really bring the people into the story that you're trying to tell.
It's funny because like as a kid, like my dad, when I told him that I wanted to be in wrestling, like he thought I meant like I wanted to be in amateur wrestling,
Uh
and so
huh.
he signed me up like in sixth grade to be in
Mm,
amateur wrestling, and I did amateur wrestling from like sixth grade until I was a sophomore in college, and it was like even senior year of high school, I remember like I broke a couple ribs, but I was still like horsing around with my friends, like still like practicing like wrist locks and hammer locks and like doing like headlocks and like figuring out how to do like certain poses and stuff. And it wasn't until like actually when I got into the business where I realized like, oh, like there's an art to this storytelling thing, like not just like grab a wrist and like just yoink it and then like hold it and stuff. So when I started figuring out how to like actually work and like do some chain wrestling, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna have like so much fun doing this because like big faces is something that I'm used to because like I was outside of just being just like a an athlete. Like I was in like show choir and glee club, I guess is what most people would know it as. So like I
mm,
had big performance faces and stuff like that. So I was already used to like doing all this stuff. And so I was like, I'm very excited to like get into this and start learning. And so my trainer, his name is Sicken, but his trainer is Ruckus. So I'm being taught by those two was like I thought it was incredible. Like I was like, well, I'm getting like all this knowledge from guys who are
yeah.
working around, and especially one of them being, Indie Hall of Famer. It's one of those things that it's just to me, uh, it's like priceless because then you realize that the wrestling business is like you're always one link away from knowing somebody who knows somebody,
Oh,
and
of course, of
it's
course, it is a
crazy to me.
fraternity for sure. It is a fraternity for sure. That's one of the things too that I love about it. I love that camaraderie. You know, every every 3 months we have here in Florida, over here in Tampa, in our area, we host a lunch. We call it the Legends Luncheon, and it's where all the guys in the state, if they can make it, but majority of the time it's a lot of the guys in Central Florida that show up to it. But we all get together. We normally have like a nominee, two nominees where we honor someone from the past, and then someone that has been a contribution to the wrestling community out here. And we just all get together, and it's been one of those lunches that every so often, when we have them every so often, you never know who's going to pop in and who you're going to end up having lunch with and enjoying yourself with. And it's where the bond gets built a lot better, you know what I mean? And there's a part of it where it's a little bit of a bridge between the gaps of generations, you know what I mean? I encourage a lot of the students that I work with out at the wrestling lab, with Jay Liesel. And once our students make it and they make their debut is when I invite them. You know what I mean? I say, hey, you should come to these lunches. I'm going to be there. And we normally keep it close to the public. It's literally, you have to be a wrestler to get in the door at the restaurant to be able to enjoy this. You know what I mean? And that's where I then get to, a lot of my students get to meet guys like, Buddy Colt. They get to meet Brian Blair. Sometimes when Steve Kern pops in, I tell my students, hey, go say what's up to that guy, introduce yourselves, and, you know, thank that guy, because if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have a coach like me today giving you a lot of this information. You know what I mean? So like that guy's one of the learning trees that you want to if he starts telling you some stories, man, you want to sit under and listen, because you never know what piece of information that's really gold that might help you. And it's just one of those cool things that we get to do every 3 months around here. So, like I said, next time you come to Florida, man, you definitely better reach out to me and come to my side, come to Tampa, and take a look at things. And who knows, man? Who knows who you might meet? Who knows what opportunities might open up?
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt. Like I definitely plan on like getting through, reaching out and saying what's up, and then like seeing what kind of shenanigans I can get into.
Oh, brother. Now, shenanigans is more my alley. You know what I'm saying?
No, listen, everybody has one of these things, and I like asking this question because this is like the fun part of my this thing I like to do. But what's one of the worst bumps you've taken?
Ooh. All right. So I got 3. Okay. The first one, that was the roughest, which was my first concussion.
Mm.
Was wrestling in NWA Florida, and me and my tag partner, his name was Stash at the time. We were known as Fahrenheit 420, and we had this opportunity to wrestle Scoot Andrews and the Black Nature Boy, and I can't remember. I can't remember the other wrestler, because in this match I obtained my first concussion. Okay, so that's what makes this one the hard one, because I can never remember my opponent, the second opponent that was with Scoot. But I took an Alabama Slam, and I wanted to I wanted to make it look as best as possible, but at the same time, I wasn't trying to concur a concussion. But when I got whipped over, my head bounced. Like I've seen the footage, and my head bounced like a basketball right on that mat. And that's all that I can remember after that. And after watching the match, I can't believe, while I was in autopilot, that I continued to go. But that was the first one that was like, oh man, that was horrible, because like I said, it was a concussion. I had to take time off, per the doctor's orders, and be smart about it. But I think I came back a little bit too early. Like I said, I was young at the time, and getting an opportunity with NWA Florida, I wasn't missing no bookings for that, my man. So there was that. And then the second bump, that was one of the roughest ones that I took. I was doing a developmental match for Florida Championship Wrestling. That's when Steve Kern was doing this for WWE, and they had a guy under contract, and this guy was massive. He went by the name of Titan, and he was 7'1", like 7'1", 7'2", with those boots that he got. And in the development match, it like I said, it was pretty much cut and dry. I got into the ring with this guy. I was going to get fed to him, and the finish was him giving me a power bomb. And you got to think about it. I'm already 6 foot, so me sitting on the shoulders of a man that's at 7'2", that's already almost 12 feet. Yep. In the air that my head and body is on the shoulders. And then there was no amount of tucking. There was no amount of being like, oh, I've taken bumps before. This won't be bad. That could prepare you for that height. Gravity is unremorseful when it comes to that. And even though Titan took care of me, I'm not going to say that he was malicious to me or tried to hurt me in any way when he gave me this bump. My man, good friend, he took care of me. You know what I mean? And it was still just a rough bump. I mean, like I said, there's no protecting that. And then I think the last final one, it's third. It's a rough bump, but I do it to myself, so I can't really complain about it. But I've had on numerous times, whenever it's a ladder match, a cage match, I have a tendency of wanting to complete a sunset flip power bomb onto my opponent every time. And it's always the landing part of it because I try to go with them when taking the bump, so that way they're not the only ones absorbing that impact on their own. I'm
Yeah.
normally sitting down on my butt when I'm doing it with them. So there you go. That kind of tells you too, why that one's a little bit rough. But yeah, I would have to say those were the three that I've taken in my career that have been like, oh God, what? The next day I'm like, why did you do that, David? Oh yeah, the pop of the crowd.
I always feel like for me, I want to get it like so on one hand I want to get the islands of Hawaii tattooed, right? But on the other hand, I want to get I'm dumb tattooed so that when I wake up and I'm just like, bruh, why did I decide to take that 360, you know, that blue thunder bomb, onto some Legos, and I just look at my hand. I'm like, oh, that's right, because I'm dumb. That's why.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like for me, it's always. I mean, you can kind of put it up into that form of stupidity, but I remember being a fan and those moments of when you would gasp for air because you saw something. I mean, a perfect example for you, watching that match with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio at 97 Halloween Havoc. Um, the second you saw the backflip into the DDT, the way how the crowd, they made that.
Yep.
They created with that moment in time that reaction from thousands of people. And whether it's thousands, whether it's hundreds, whether if it's 50 to 10 fans that are in the crowd, if I can some way, somehow generate that reaction by a moment that I have caused in that time frame, then I felt like my experiment is a success. And that right there is what I was trying to produce, because that's how I try to refer to all my matches. All my matches are experiments, and with each experiment, it is, what am I going to do with B, this variable, which is of course the participant, and what are we going to allow ourselves to create at that moment in time to make those people have that reaction? Which one of us is willing to push the envelope to get that reaction in the match? In the
Yeah.
end, you know what I mean? Like that, it's that story you tell that those people remember, and with that story, those are moments that you use. It doesn't always have to be your sequences. It doesn't always have to be, a big death-defying um, bump or something to hurt yourself to generate that. It's not always that, and I wish some of the younger guys would understand that. Sometimes it's something as simple as just acknowledging one fan in the audience that affects the rest of the people. You know what I mean? And that's how you know you've done a good job that night, especially too when you have them waiting to meet you. Right after the show, you've done something when you have them there ready to meet you. So I don't think it's necessarily us being dumb. It's just, what are we willing to do to generate that reaction?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's something that I've been trying to learn to tinker with and to play with the idea because like recently, and it's funny because I got actually, you know what? y'all don't get this question. Y'all gonna have to wait. Like, you don't get me to see this. I'm gonna talk to him post, and then we're gonna figure this out. There's something I'm gonna bring up to you afterwards, after this episode. Sorry, y'all
Gotcha.
can't get that, but no. So let me ask this question, and I'm gonna move on to the next one. Uh, what's one of the hardest lessons you've had to learn being in the business?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily don't mean that this question just goes just for wrestling. I mean, it goes practically for life. There just isn't enough time. I mean, 22 years is going on 23. Uh, the best parts have been a blink of an eye, and that's been a lot of blinks for me, you know. And it's just there's not enough, no matter what. Because one thing that I can say in wrestling is that it's sad that your mind continues to grow for this industry, and you evolve and you learn and you get wiser. But then I guess you can, the price you pay is what you do to your body. And, your body doesn't able, you are, just because you get older doesn't mean your love and your passion don't change for this business. It grows, but unfortunately your body can't keep up with the demand. And one of the things, and at first I didn't get it when I was young. We're all young, and that's when we are dumb. When you have someone that has been there, that has done that knows, and they tell you you got to focus on this things, because eventually the things that you're doing now aren't going to matter, because you're not going to be able to do them as good as you did them when you were young. And of course it's going to be overdone, and the fans ain't going to get the same reaction out of it. So now here you are, thinking to yourself, damn, I wish I wouldn't have done all that stupid stuff then, because now I would at least be able to go a little bit longer, because my body's a little bit better. My mind is just a little bit better. But unfortunately, that's not how this works. So yeah, I would have to say, man, time is where it's at. But one of the things that, and to the positive part of what, not, yeah, the positive also too that I get to see is the bittersweet, because being a coach for the last going on 6 years now, being a coach has brought a perspective. And one of the things is seeing the ones that listened, and the ones that are out there, and they're taking the knowledge that you've given them, and they're making it into something, and you're seeing the success happen right in front of your eyes. That right there has also been one of those bittersweet, because I wish I had more time to train more people to see it grow. But yeah, I would have to say that one too is a good one.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. Um, it's funny because, like, for me, I got into the game like a lot older, and so I guess because I had lived a whole, and I don't want to sound rude when I say it this way, but I lived a whole life before even getting into wrestling, being in the military, and then going to school,
Yeah,
having a family, stuff like that. Like, it changes the perspective of what you get into and what you want to do. But
yeah,
I feel like it also modified like how I want to wrestle, because obviously I don't want to take like a whole bunch of dumb bumps that are unnecessary just to get a pop out of the crowd. I want to get the I'm one of those guys that, like, I watch a lot of like Jake the Snake Roberts and Macho Man, and I watch, Chris Canyon, and Rey Mysterio and those guys. And all outside of Rey Mysterio, some of those guys never really took wild bumps, no really crazy bumps. They were just really great at what they did in the ring.
hmm,
And so for me, that's like kind of what I've always wanted to do, is build myself off of a character so that my character can do more of the talking versus me, and like my physicalness can do it. So
yeah,
I it's something I learned, and then it was something I brought to a lot of like even my trainers students when I go down and wrestle in Maryland and stuff. And I talk to them like, yo, like, there's no reason to hit a a 450 splash in a practice match unless you're practicing it. Like to hit it in a
Yeah,
practice match just because you want to
sure.
pop the boys, cool. But what was the point? We're trying to tell stories in a ring.
Yep.
So but no, I definitely appreciate that the idea and the thought process of Father Time is undefeated. It's just that we have to be ready to help pass down that knowledge when the time comes, because it's gonna come for
Can't,
everybody.
yeah, you can't keep it forever. It's not like you can take it with you. What's up, buddy?
No.
One of my buddies here. Always got to come and check up on me.
I love it. So we're gonna go into my favorite part of the 3 Count Podcast. That is the 3 Count Podcast, 10 count questions, and Dr. Mercury. This is how it works. I'm gonna fire off 10 questions at you rapid fast, and whatever your answer is, that is your answer.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna put on an imaginary timer for added pressure. Bing! And in the words of my favorite commentator, Mike Goldberg, here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
Raw.
Favorite movie?
Devil's Rejects.
Let's go. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Favorite cartoon?
X-Men, the original one from the 90s.
Let's go. Apple or Android?
Android.
Favorite TV show?
Of all time or current?
Yes.
All time. Of all time?
Let's go both. Let's go both.
Okay. Current, The Office. Of all time, favorite TV show would have to be Family Guy.
I like both those. Dexter or Morty, as far as mad scientists go.
Morty.
Favorite podcast?
Oh, wow. To be honest, I really don't listen to a lot of podcasts, so I'm going to say 3 Count.
Because it's the best one. Nominate one wrestler that you want to see on this podcast.
Nominate one wrestler that I want. Dirty Devin Diaz.
I love it. And then last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person who comes on this podcast: favorite curse word?
Favorite cuss word?
Yeah.
This was for Mr. Briggs. And I'm not even going to say it because he knows it.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about too, because I've already asked him that question on here too.
Exactly.
Although we can't curse on this podcast, like I know I didn't mention that, but yeah, I definitely I know what it is, because see you next Tuesday, because he loves to say that.
Exactly.
All right, well, listen, those are all my questions that I have to ask you. So the last thing I need from you is to let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
Oh, wow. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and on X. All you have to do for Instagram and X is the technical alchemist DM, and then on Facebook, of course, the technical alchemist David Mercury, my fan page, and that's where you can find me. And you can also find me on Xbox, gamer tag Tech Alchemy -DM, both capitals. If you ever want to game with me. Avid gamer, love to do it. And yeah, those are what you can find me. You can also find me on YouTube, and my YouTube channel is the Technical Alchemist David Mercury.
Bet. Well, he told you where you can find him, and he gave you all his handles. He even told you can come game with him whenever you want to. So what does that mean? Like every great part of a wrestling match, we got to take it home because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that led you out that mountain called wrestling. And, like I said, for every great Sherpa, you got to have a better one that knows how to get there, do that, and then show you how to do it even more efficiently than what you can. So, what this means. It means tune into the next episode, or you're really just kind of waiting for this episode to end. You're logged into all of our social media platforms. You're checking us on YouTube. You're even paying attention to us on Spotify, giving us a follow there. Go and check us out on Amazon Music, and even that one app that has a dumb jingle that goes iHeartRadio, or however that thing goes. You're checking us out on ProWrestlingTees.com or ForYourWear.com. You're even telling your mom about us. You're telling your dad about us. You tell your uncle, your aunties, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters, your best friends, and your enemies, because we love haters too. Do all those things. Check us out on all of our social media platforms. Or really, you're just kind of waiting for this episode to end. You're waiting for the outro, and then you're choosing another episode to listen to. Kawaii. What's going on? It is Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And what we need from you guys is just kind of show some support, right? We want you guys to go to our YouTube channel at the 3 Count Podcast, go on to our Twitch channel, 3 Count Pod, or even our Facebook page, 3 Count Podcast, and just give us a like, follow, subscribe, even give us a comment, right? Do all that cool stuff. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your enemies, right? Or you can even come talk to us and just chat us up, right? Find us on Twitter at 3Count_pod. Find us on IG and on TikTok at 3Count Pod. Go ahead and leave us those comments. We want to hear from all of you guys. We're going to keep putting on videos and stuff like that. We want to keep making this content better, so we want your guys' support. Also, if you guys want to, go support us at ProWrestlingTees.com/the 3 Count Podcast, or even find us on ForYourWear.com. Give us the support. Show us your guys' love, because we want to give it right back to y'all. So, in the meantime, between time, love y'all.